On November 26, 1930, a news story was published on the front page of the Maiden Daily Journal newspaper in Canada. The headline read, "Village of the Dead." This news sent a wave of fear throughout Canada because an entire tribe in northern Canada had mysteriously disappeared overnight without welcomed viewers. In the remote area of northern Canada lies the Anjikuni Lake, where a small Eskimo tribe used to live along its shores. About 100 to 150 people from this tribe used to survive by fishing in the lake. This region of northern Canada is known for its vast and harsh climate, with only a few thousand people living over thousands of square kilometers. Besides fishing, hunting other animals in the surrounding area was common, and many hunters visited this region regularly. On a cold day in November 1930, a hunter named Libel came to this area. He got so busy with his hunting that he didn't notice when nightfall arrived. He decided to spend the night with the Eskimo tribe, just like he had done before. The people of this tribe were well known for welcoming outsiders, so Libel packed his belongings and started heading towards their settlement. It was a moonlit night, but there was an eerie silence all around. No one was visible, and there was no sound, except for the sound of his own footsteps. He thought maybe the villagers were asleep or had gone somewhere. When he got closer to the settlement, he could see some smoke rising from a few huts. But when he reached the village, he was shocked to find it completely deserted. There were no people or animals around. What confused him even more was that there was smoke coming from the chimneys, suggesting that someone had been there recently. He entered a random hut but found it empty. The same was the case with all the huts in the village. Despite seeing the strange scene, people tried to ignore it, but one thing caught his attention. In some of the huts, cooking utensils were still on the stoves and the food was burnt, meaning someone had started cooking but never finished their meal. Even sewing needles with thread were still in place, as if someone had left mid-task. It seemed as though the villagers had left in a hurry, but where did they go? Libel began searching the entire village and noticed that the dogs the villagers had kept were tied up but had died of hunger. There was food in front of them, but no one to feed them. He also found a freshly dug grave. This made Libel even more anxious and fearful. He thought that maybe something sinister had happened, forcing the villagers to leave so suddenly, abandoning their dogs, food, clothes, and even the burning fires. Terrified, he rushed to the nearest telegraph office and reported the situation to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. When the police arrived at the village, what Libel had described turned out to be true. The police initially suspected an attack had taken place with all the villagers killed, but there were no signs of blood or a struggle. There was no sign of any violence. The police launched a search operation to find the villagers, but during the investigation, something unusual was noticed. The entire village was covered in snow, but there were no footprints in the snow except for Libel's. It seemed that no one had entered or left the village. The boats of the villagers were still parked on the shore of the lake as they were not used for fishing in the winter. If the villagers had fled, or if they had been killed and thrown into the lake, the ice would have been broken in some way, but there was no such sign. The police also discovered that the villagers had been missing for several days before Libel arrived because the dogs had not died of hunger in just 1 or 2 days, and the smoke from the huts suggested the people had left recently. Despite months of searching, the case remained unsolved, and the police eventually closed the investigation, labeling it as unsolved forever. Over time, people forgot about it. 50 years later, in 1984, writers Roger Bohr and Nigel Blunder published an article in which they tried to link the incident to aliens. They mentioned that when they explored the area near Anjikuni Lake, they met a hunter and his 2 sons who had often seen strange flying objects over the lake. These objects would often head towards the village where the Eskimo tribe lived. Based on this story, they speculated that perhaps aliens had landed that night and abducted all the villagers. Most people did not believe this theory and rejected it. After that, many people started creating different stories about the disappearance of the Eskimo tribe. However, the truth is that this incident is about to complete 100 years, but to this day, no one has an answer to the question, where did the people of the Ankeny Lake village go without leaving any trace? The disappearance of the Eskimo tribe remains a mystery even today.